My name is Azine. After my last heartbreak, I decided to focus on myself and stay far away from love and relationships. I was strong and determined, but everything changed when I met Chinedu. He was tall and handsome with bright lips and a fit body. Even though I found him attractive, I told myself, no, not again. Good-looking guys don't love. So, I didn't give him a chance. I met Chinedu at a colleague's birthday party, and his words stuck in my mind. He got my number from a friend and started sending me messages. I was angry that my friend shared my number without asking, so I talked to her. She told me to calm down and suggested that I should give Chinedu a chance, saying he might be the one I was looking for. I laughed and thought, he's too good-looking to be serious. He'll probably cheat, and I don't want to fight for any man. Even though I tried to stay away, Chinedu kept reaching out to me, asking for a chance. His sweet words about love annoyed me, and I told him to stop bothering me. He answered, I wish I could. After hearing that, I couldn't stop thinking about him. I wanted to talk to him all the time, day and night. Finally, I sent him a message saying, did you do something to me? I can't stop thinking about you after we met. What's happening? He sent me a funny sticker with a smile, and I started liking him more. I video called him, and seeing his happy face made me imagine a future with him. He asked to meet again, but I said no, trying to act strong. At work, my colleague Ngozi said that Chinedu had told her I was replying to his messages, but was still unsure. Annoyed that he talked to her about me, I called him and said, don't you have your own life? Why are you talking about me all day? And why are you telling Ngozi everything? He replied, Princess, I can't think straight anymore since I met you. He didn't know I felt the same way, but I stayed firm. When Ngozi's brother had an event, I knew I would see Chinedu there. I arrived at the venue but didn't go inside because I saw his car. I sat in the lounge pretending to Ngozi that I was on my way. Suddenly I felt someone behind me, and when I turned around, it was Chinedu. I felt nervous seeing him again, looking so charming. He asked why I didn't come inside and why I lied to Ngozi. I tried to leave, but he gently held my hand and asked, why are you punishing us? I wondered what he meant by us, but I didn't say anything. I pulled my hand away and went inside. Ngozi smiled at me and said we looked cute together. Embarrassed, I wondered if she had seen us outside. During the party, I kept looking at him, and he looked at me too. I went to the restroom, confused about my feelings. When someone tried to open the door, I thought it was Chinedu and screamed, but it was Ngozi, who asked if I was okay. I said yes, feeling embarrassed, and left, only to see Chinedu watching me as he drank his wine. After the party, I waited for my ride, knowing Chinedu was still in his car. When my Uber came, I asked the driver to take me somewhere else, knowing Chinedu would follow. When I reached the new location, I saw him drive past, then come back. Frustrated, I walked up to him. He parked his car, got out, and as I got closer to talk to him, he pulled me close and kissed me, looking deep into my eyes. It took a lot of courage to move Chinedu's hand from my waist. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't look him in the eyes. I stepped away. He smiled and said, so, you feel the same way. Why did you change where you were going if this isn't your home? I stared at him for a moment, distracted by his charm. I thought to myself, I can never love again, not after all the pain I've been through. Let me give you a ride home, he offered. Stop frustrating me, I said. I'm not interested. He smiled again and said, okay. But it's getting late. Let me drive you. Mr. Perfect trying to act nice, I muttered, walking away. Really? You're going to walk home? He asked. It's none of your business, I replied quickly. I walked as fast as I could, crossed the road, and hailed a cab. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how Chinedu held my waist and looked at me, making me smile. It had been so long since anyone touched me like that. Ifeanyi, my ex, was the one who made me hate the word love. Ifeanyi was the man I thought I would marry. He seemed so good and perfect. After giving him everything, I found out he was sleeping with the girls he brought to me for acting lessons. He was a movie director, and these girls were his industry daughters. I later discovered he had slept with all of them before introducing them to me. But the worst part wasn't just his cheating. Behind my back, he denied that I was his girlfriend. He told them I was only his friend and that he was close to me because he needed someone to train the girls. He would make them sign contracts with huge amounts of money but never gave me any. Instead, I trained them because they were his daughters, and he made me believe they were my responsibility too. Yes, he was my man. So if he was their dad, I was supposed to be their mom. He made me believe this. Things continued, and I didn't realize what was happening until he started liking Amaka, my closest friend. Amaka wanted to become an actress, and I introduced her to Ifeanyi. When Ifeanyi told Amaka he loved her, she asked why he wanted to be with two friends, and he told her, "Ezine isn't my girlfriend. She's just my friend." Amaka was confused because I had already told her secretly that Ifeanyi was my man and that we were about to get married. Both our families were aware of this. Amaka asked Ifeanyi to prove he wasn't with me, and he agreed. One day, Ifeanyi begged me to act like we weren't together when Amaka came over. I asked why, and he said it was because Amaka had feelings for him. I asked him how he knew, and he said Amaka told him herself. I was upset. "I've already told her about us," I reminded him. "Really? And she still has the nerve to tell me she loves me," he replied. I wanted to confront Amaka, but I decided to play along to see if it was true. Ifeanyi sent Amaka an invitation to visit. On that day, he asked me to cook his favorite meal and told me he would pick Amaka up from her house. He also begged me to remember our deal, to pretend we were just friends so we could see if Amaka truly wanted him. Finally, Amaka arrived with Ifeanyi. He made her sit on my couch, kissed her on the cheek, and smiled. Amaka looked at me, and I looked at Ifeanyi. He smiled and said, "Meet my new crush." She told me she loves me, but she thought you and I had a thing going. I didn't know what to say. We had already agreed to act like this. Ifeanyi asked what I had cooked, and I told him. "Oh yeah, my favorite," he said. He asked me to serve them, and I did. During lunch, Ifeanyi was all over Amaka. Amaka didn't make any moves to show she was interested, but Ifeanyi kept acting like I wasn't there, trying to prove he wasn't with me. As if it wasn't bad enough that he was flirting with Amaka, he then sat me down and asked if Amaka would be a good match for him. I smiled awkwardly. Amaka then asked me why I had lied to her about dating Ifeanyi. Ifeanyi pretended like he was hearing this for the first time. "What? You lied about us?" he asked, pretending to be shocked. I was confused. I asked, "Really?" He tried to signal me to continue playing along, but I couldn't anymore. I turned to Amaka and said, "Aren't you ashamed? I told you about my relationship, and you still have the nerve to ask my man out? Is it even right for a woman to ask a man out?" "You must be joking. I thought we were friends." Amaka looked confused and said, "Where did you get that from?" "I would never ask a man out." "And I thought you said Ifeanyi is your man. Why are you letting him be with me right in front of you? Isn't this disrespectful?" Ifeanyi asked me out, and I told him I knew about you too. He said, "Nope, she's not my girlfriend. Maybe she's just pretending." I asked him to prove it, not because I wanted him, but to see what he would do. And now, here we are. "Liar," I said. "You asked Ifeanyi out. He only brought you here so I could see the kind of friend you are. How could you? You've been crushing on my man." "You're funny," Amaka said. She pulled out her phone and showed me her messages with Ifeanyi. That's how I found out the truth about Ifeanyi. After remembering everything from my last relationship, I promised myself, never again. No man is real, not even Chinedu. He's too handsome, too perfect. Just then, I got a message on my phone. It was from Chinedu. The message said, "I'll be counting the minutes until we can be together again. I hope to see you in my dreams, my love." Oh my goodness, I thought. Will this guy ever stop? I went to bed without saying goodnight to Chinedu or responding to his message. My mind was already made up. The next morning, the doorbell woke me up. Who could that be? I got out of bed, went to the living room, and opened the door to find a gift box. I thought, I hope this isn't from Chinedu. I took it inside, opened the note attached to it, and just as I guessed, it was from Chinedu. Inside was a gold necklace with my name on it. I smiled when I saw it. The doorbell rang again, and I got nervous. Could it be Chinedu? Instead of answering the door, I rushed to freshen up, sprayed some deodorant, and put on a nice dress. I thought, Chinedu shouldn't see me looking messy. The bell kept ringing. When I was ready, I went to the door calmly, but to my surprise, it was Ngozi standing there. "What took you so long? You kept me waiting forever," she said as she walked in. It wasn't Chinedu. I felt a bit disappointed but didn't show it. Ngozi looked at me and smiled. "Wow, you look so pretty. Were you getting ready to go out?" I didn't reply and just sat on the couch. If only she knew how annoying she looked sitting there smiling, I thought to myself. She started to get suspicious. "Oh, were you expecting someone?" she asked. I looked away. She suddenly screamed, "Wow, did you invite Chinedu? I knew it. I saw how you two looked at each other at the event." Then she saw the box on the table, opened it, and found the necklace. "OMG, this is beautiful," she exclaimed. She reached for the note, but I quickly grabbed it. She was surprised. "No need to hide it, girl. It must be from Chinedu. Yes, this is his style. He sells beautiful necklaces, so this must be from him." I went back to my seat. She stared at me for a while before getting closer. "Give Chinedu a chance. You won't regret it. Chinedu is rich, caring, cute, and thoughtful. I promise you'll be happy." "Did he send this through you?" I asked. "No, of course not," she quickly replied. "How did he know where I live?" I asked. "I don't know. I was going to ask if you gave him your address." I glared at her. "If I find out you gave him my address, I won't take it well." "So anyway, why did you come over?" I asked. "The proposal. We were supposed to work on it together," she said. "Oh, I forgot. I've been thinking so much about Chinedu that I forgot about work." Ngozi and I got to work. Days passed, then weeks, and then months. Chinedu didn't stop. He kept sending me gifts even when I didn't ask for them. I didn't have the heart to reject them because they were so beautiful, but I still wasn't ready to accept his proposal. One day, I received an invitation to a conference at a company I had never heard of. The invite came by email. I thought it was a mistake, so I replied, "Hello, I think you sent this to the wrong person. Please check the email address." Immediately, I got a call. A lady introduced herself as the company's secretary, saying there was no mistake and asked me to be on time. Is this Chinedu's new trick to get me to meet him? I wondered. I called Ngozi and asked if Chinedu owned a company. She said no, only that he sold jewelry. I called Chinedu angrily and asked him, "Why did you send me a conference invitation with a company letterhead?" Chinedu said it wasn't him. Now I started to worry. On the day of the meeting, I wasn't sure if I should go or not since I didn't know the company, but my gut told me to go, thinking it might be an opportunity. I had been praying for more work, and this might be the answer, so I decided to go. I dressed up professionally and headed to the meeting. When I arrived at the address, it turned out to be a hotel. Well, some hotels have conference halls, I thought. I asked the receptionist where the meeting was. He said I was late and people were already inside. I apologized, and he led me to the hall. When we reached the door, he left me there. I took a deep breath, opened the door, and found a room beautifully decorated with flowers, doves, and a table set with wine and food. On the big screen, my picture and our WhatsApp chats were being shown. Oh no, I knew it. This was Chinedu's doing. The day we argued over his messages, the day I almost fell for him but acted like I didn't. Sometimes I even started the conversation when he hadn't spoken to me in days. I got lost watching the screen, but suddenly, someone grabbed me by the waist from behind. It could only be Chinedu, my charming and romantic man. At that moment, my heart softened, and I felt love again after so many years. He said, "I don't care what happens next. I've missed you so much, and I didn't know how to bring you here so I could hold you again. Forgive me if I went too far, but Azine, I love you. Please be my date." The words "I love you" echoed in my head over and over. I couldn't pretend anymore. I turned to him, and Chinedu looked so handsome. I didn't even notice when my bag and files fell from my hands. I reached for his lips, and we kissed passionately. After a while, we looked at each other and burst out laughing. I felt shy. Chinedu asked, "So, is it a yes?" I smiled and didn't say anything. "At least you could have added in the email, dress nicely. Look at me in a suit," I said. He smiled and said, "I love you just the way you are." Then he kissed me again. Oh my God, it was our first date. You know what I mean. Looking nice is always important. I asked him to take me home so I could change into something prettier. I was so happy. So how did our relationship go? Is Chinedu the perfect guy for me? Chinedu's words were sweet, full of promises for a future filled with love and adventure. I said yes to his proposal, feeling so happy. In the following months, Chinedu was the perfect boyfriend. He took me all over the city, showing me beautiful places I had never seen before. We visited art galleries, ate at the best restaurants, and walked together in parks. Chinedu loved buying gifts for me, always surprising me with things he knew I would love. He always managed to choose the perfect dress or jewelry for me. Every day, Chinedu made me love him more. He was caring, attentive, and knew how to make me laugh. I was so thankful I gave him a chance. It felt like I had found the man of my dreams. But after 6 months, things began to change. Chinedu started giving me more space, but he tried not to make it too obvious. Whenever I needed his attention, he would say he was busy with work or had to travel. When I talked to Ngozi about it, she told me Chinedu was probably just busy, like he said. I tried to believe her and be patient. However, his being busy started to feel more serious, and I began to feel uneasy. Every time I talked to him about it, Chinedu would make big efforts to win me back. He would take me out on romantic dates, give me gifts, and tell me how much he loved me. Every time I fell for it and convinced myself that he still cared deeply for me. One day, Chinedu told me he had to travel for work and would be gone for a few days. We spent the night together before he left, as I was going to miss him. He was going to be away for almost a week this time. The next morning, I wanted to take him to the airport, but he refused. He said he wanted to make sure I got home safely before he left. He offered to drive me home and then head to the airport alone. My caring boyfriend always made sure I didn't stress, and I was happy as we left the house. He dropped me off at home and went to the airport. As soon as he arrived, he called me on WhatsApp video. I was already missing him, but I had no choice but to wait for his return. That night, I couldn't sleep. I was worried but didn't know why. I called him many times, and he answered every time, talking to me as usual. We even had video calls all night. The next morning, as I was getting ready for work, I realized I had left an important file at his house, and my company needed it that day. Luckily, I had a spare key to his house, so I decided to take an Uber there, pick up the file, and then go to work. When I got to Chinedu's house, I was surprised to find the door unlocked. I tried to remember if he had forgotten to lock it, but I thought I would just lock it on my way out and not mention it to him. I hoped everything inside was safe. How could we be so careless? As I walked in, I smelled food cooking in the kitchen. I panicked, thinking maybe we had left the gas on. I ran to the kitchen, only to find a woman standing there. I recognized her as the girl Chinedu once posted on social media, saying she was his sister. We were both surprised. The girl, who I later learned was named Adaora, smiled and welcomed me. She said Chinedu didn't tell her I was coming. I smiled back, trying to understand what was happening, and asked her why she was there and how she got inside. My mind told me, she's his sister, so maybe she has a spare key. So I apologized for asking. Adaora smiled and said she had come with Chinedu the night before, and she was happy to finally meet me. I was confused. I thought Chinedu said, I couldn't finish my thought. Maybe something happened and he had to come back with his sister. But why didn't he tell me? We talked all night. I forced a smile and Adaora smiled back, saying she was scared I wouldn't accept her visit. She had heard so much about me from Chinedu and was excited for us to bond as sisters. It was sweet to hear. I always dreamed of being close to my boyfriend's sister. I smiled happily. Adaora hugged me, and I just stood there, not knowing how to react. Suddenly, the kitchen door opened and Chinedu walked in. He looked shocked, his face turned pale, and he couldn't say a word. Adaora, unaware of the tension, said it was nice to finally meet Chinedu's sister. Chinedu tried to smile, but it looked forced. He turned to me and said, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" I would have prepared better. I was confused. Adaora, still unaware, told him not to worry and that she would make sure I felt welcome. She was already cooking breakfast after all. "Your sister is so beautiful," Adaora added, and Chinedu smiled, looking at me. "Beauty runs in our family," Chinedu said, smiling at me. I could barely breathe. I wanted to walk away in anger, but Chinedu grabbed my hand. He looked at me with pleading eyes and said, "My little sister came all the way from Abuja. She must be hungry. Adaora, please hurry up." Adaora promised to finish quickly. Chinedu led me out of the kitchen, holding my hand tightly. As soon as we were out of Adaora's earshot, I pulled my hand away and turned to Chinedu. "What's going on, Chinedu?" I asked, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. Chinedu sighed, running his hand through his hair. "Ezine, I can explain," he started, but I interrupted him. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me? That you've been treating me like a fool this whole time?" My voice got louder with each word. Chinedu looked back at the kitchen door and then lowered his voice. "Please, let's talk somewhere else. I don't want Adaora to hear." "Don't tell me it's what I'm thinking," I said, my mind racing. He led me to his room. Once inside, he closed the door and looked at me. "Ezine, Adaora is my sister," he said quietly. I shook my head. "What?" "Chinedu, stop lying. You told her I'm your sister too. Does this even make sense?" Chinedu took a deep breath. "She's my sister, but not like you think. She's my half-sister from my mom's side. Look, she's..." I slapped him. I couldn't hold my anger any longer. What was he trying to do? Tell me more lies? Tears filled my eyes, and I collapsed on the bed, feeling overwhelmed. "Why me?" I whispered. Chinedu looked at me, his eyes full of regret. "I'm sorry, Ezine. Adaora is actually my ex. We've been having issues and I'm trying to let her go. The truth is, I still have feelings for her, but I promise I will figure it out and end it." "I'm really sorry," Chinedu said. I stared at him, hurt and disbelief washing over me. "So, your feelings for me were fake? How can you say you love me, but still have feelings for your ex? Was I just a distraction until you sorted things out with her?" I asked. "No, Ezine, it's not like that," Chinedu pleaded. "I love you, I really do, but..." He couldn't finish. Tears rolled down my face as I stood up. "You should have told me from the start. You should have let me decide whether to stay or leave. But you took that choice away from me, Chinedu. Were all your promises lies?" He reached out to touch me, but I stepped back. "Don't. Just don't." Adaora knocked on the door, calling us for breakfast. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath. I needed time to think and process everything. I left him with Adaora in his house. I couldn't go to work. I called Ngozi and begged her to come over. The Uber took me home. When I arrived, I almost collapsed at my front door, but I managed to stay strong. I struggled to get inside, and once I did, I fell to the floor, crying uncontrollably. Why me? I thought. After everything I told Chinedu about my last relationship and how he promised to be different, why didn't he tell me he still had feelings for his ex? Then I heard someone trying to open the door. I moved away, trying to stay strong. It was Ngozi. She was shocked to see me like that. She asked what happened, and I explained everything to her. She was angry for me. "You need to confront him," Ngozi said. "Make him choose. Don't just walk away because you saw another woman. Let him be the one to make the decision, whether to stay with you or go." Did Chinedu really leave me for Adaora, his ex? I couldn't sleep that night, my mind full of thoughts about Chinedu and his lies. Despite my calls, he didn't answer or call me back. I felt like going to his house, but I held back, thinking he should be the one to reach out. The next morning came, and there was still no word from him. I tried to gather the strength to go to work, but I couldn't. Maybe Ngozi was right. I should confront Chinedu and make him choose, so I could see if I was just being used. Instead of going to work, I decided to go to his house. When I got there, I saw Adaora watching a movie, not noticing anything was wrong. I asked where Chinedu was, and she said he was upstairs. Suddenly, she told me to be patient with him. I was confused. Chinedu had told her that I came to him to complain about a cheating boyfriend, and I left quickly because I felt uncomfortable. That's when I realized how manipulative Chinedu had been. There was no need to make him choose. He didn't deserve me. Chinedu came downstairs acting like everything was fine. He asked how I was and said I should have stayed so he could comfort me. I was angry and asked him what kind of man he was. He looked surprised and glanced at Adaora. Then Adaora told me Chinedu wasn't her brother, which went against what he had told me. I confronted him about pushing me into a relationship when he knew I wasn't ready. He couldn't answer. I decided I was done with him. I had been manipulated in my last relationship and wasn't going to let it happen again. I grabbed my things and left, but Chinedu didn't try to stop me. The pain was unbearable. Instead of going home or to work, I went to a bar to clear my head. As the night went on, more couples arrived at the bar. I saw a guy, and in my frustration, I shouted at him about how much I hated men. I was drunk and needed to sit down. The guy I had yelled at came over to help, but I refused. Still, he kindly got me an Uber to take me home. The next morning, a knock on my door woke me up. It was the guy from the bar, checking if I was okay. I wasn't interested, and closed the door on him. Later, Ngozi visited, and I told her I was over Chinedu, though I still cried when I was alone, wishing he would choose me. I couldn't beg him to see my worth. 3 weeks passed, and I started to feel stronger. The guy from the bar came again, but I angrily sent him away. Just then, Chinedu walked in. My heart softened, and I hugged the guy from the bar, pretending we were together. Chinedu looked upset and left. The guy introduced himself as Kichi. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Chinedu. Then my phone rang. It was him. He sounded sincere as he apologized. I couldn't stop my tears and ended the call. The next morning, I told Ngozi about Chinedu's apology. She advised me to forgive him, so I invited him over and we got back together. Later, Kichi came to visit and was upset when he saw Chinedu with me. He seemed hurt that I didn't tell him I was back with Chinedu, but I didn't feel the need to explain. Kichi hadn't asked me out, so I didn't understand why he was disappointed. Am I really going to stay with Chinedu now that Kichi seems interested in me? After I got back with Chinedu, I felt both happy and confused. I tried to focus on our relationship, but I kept thinking about Kichi. One evening, I was sitting in my living room when the doorbell rang. I opened it and saw Kichi standing there looking serious. "Can we talk?" he asked. I waited for a moment, then let him in. We sat down, and Kichi said, "I'm sorry if I seemed upset before. I was just confused. I really like you and thought we could be together." His words made me feel sad. I was focused on Chinedu and didn't think about Kichi much. "I understand, Kichi," I said. "But things with Chinedu are not easy. I'm trying to make it work with him." Kichi nodded, but I could see he was disappointed. "I understand. I just wanted to tell you how I feel. If you ever need someone or if things don't work out with Chinedu, I'll be here." I thanked him, and he left. I sat alone, thinking about how honest Kichi was and wondering if I missed a good chance because of my feelings for Chinedu. That night, Chinedu came over. He noticed I was quiet and asked, "Are you okay? You seem distracted." I thought for a moment, then said, "There's just a lot on my mind." Chinedu tried to comfort me. "I know I made mistakes, and I'm really sorry. I want us to be okay." I wanted to believe him, but what Kichi said made me unsure. I felt torn between Chinedu, who I knew, and Kichi, who was kind and honest. In the next few days, I tried to think about my feelings. Chinedu was caring and wanted to stay together, but Kichi's honesty made me think about my choices. One afternoon, I went to the park to think. As I sat on a bench, Chinedu came. He sat next to me and held my hand. "I need to know what you're thinking," he said. I want to be with you, but if you need time, I understand. Before I could reply, I saw Kelechi walking towards us. He looked unsure but strong. I don't want to interrupt, Kelechi said, looking at Chinedu, but I need to say that I care about you. I want what's best for you, even if that's not with me. It was a heavy moment. I knew I had to choose, and it wasn't going to be easy. I need time to think, I said, feeling overwhelmed. Thank you both for being honest with me. Chinedu and Kelechi respected my space and left. I knew I needed to make a decision that was right for me, not just based on the situation. In the next few days, I thought hard about my past with Chinedu and what I wanted for my future. Kelechi's kindness and Chinedu's apologies made me realize I had to follow my heart. I decided to meet with both of them and share my decision. When we sat down together, I said, I've thought a lot about this. Chinedu, I'm thankful for everything, but I need to focus on myself. I don't think we can fix things as easily as we thought. Chinedu looked sad but nodded. I understand. I hope you find what makes you happy. Then I turned to Kelechi and said, Kelechi, I want to give us a chance. I think we can be honest and start fresh. Kelechi smiled, looking happy. I would love that. I promise to be there for you, no matter what happens. As they left, I felt calm. The future was uncertain, but I was ready to face it with a clear heart. After my honest talk with Chinedu and Kelechi, I felt both nervous and hopeful. I chose to move forward with Kelechi, leaving behind the ups and downs I had with Chinedu. At first, everything with Kelechi felt like a fresh start. Kelechi was caring and kind, and his actions made me feel like I made the right choice. We spent time together, went on walks, shared meals, and talked about our dreams. It felt good to be with someone who seemed open and supportive. One Saturday, Kelechi invited me to an art exhibit he was excited about. I was happy to spend time with him and explore something new. The exhibit was held in a small gallery downtown, with works by local artists. As we walked through the art, Kelechi's passion was clear. I think art helps us understand emotions, Kelechi said, pointing to a painting. It's like seeing the world through someone else's eyes. I smiled and agreed. Yes, each piece has its own story to tell. After the exhibit, we went to a cafe nearby for coffee. Kelechi was relaxed, and we had fun talking. I found myself enjoying our time together even more. But things started to change when Kelechi found out I was still talking to Chinedu sometimes. I had been honest with Kelechi about staying in touch with Chinedu, trying to keep everything clear. But Kelechi didn't like it. One evening, after an argument about Chinedu, Kelechi got really upset. His words were hurtful, and I felt scared. My trust in Kelechi was broken. Chinedu had never treated me like this, and I regretted giving Kelechi a chance. The next day, feeling scared and unsure, I called Chinedu. When Chinedu heard about what Kelechi did, he was angry. He came over right away to talk to Kelechi. Chinedu went to Kelechi's place, and they had a big argument. I stood far away, feeling worried as the two of them argued. It was tense, but in the end, Kelechi left. After the argument, Chinedu came to my place to make sure I was okay. He was gentle and kind, comforting me. We talked for hours about everything that happened. It was a hard time, but I was thankful for Chinedu's support. In the weeks that followed, Chinedu and I stayed in touch as friends. His presence helped me feel like myself again, and I started to heal from what I had gone through. Being friends with Chinedu gave me peace. One night, while we were sitting together, Chinedu asked me if we could try again. I know things have been hard, but I'd like to start over with you. Would you be open to that? He asked. I felt confused. I cared about Chinedu, but after what happened with Kelechi, I wasn't sure I was ready for a relationship. I needed time to think. While I was thinking about it, I found out I was pregnant. The news left me feeling unsure of what to do next. My feelings for Chinedu and the pregnancy made everything more complicated. The news overwhelmed me. I needed time to decide what was best for me and the baby. My past with Chinedu and what happened with Kelechi made me feel uncertain about the future. After I found out I was pregnant, I made a choice that I thought would bring peace to my life. I went back to Kelechi. When I told him about the baby, his reaction surprised me. He seemed calm, almost happy. We can make this work, Kelechi said softly, holding my hand. Let's build a family together. For a moment, I believed him. I wanted to think that Kelechi had changed, and that this would be the fresh start I needed. The idea of raising a child with Kelechi in a peaceful home gave me hope. But as the weeks passed, things began to change. Kelechi's calm attitude went away, and he started acting mean and controlling again. He became jealous and accused me of caring about Chinedu. No matter how much I tried to explain, Kelechi didn't believe me. "You think I don't know?" he'd say angrily. "You've been talking to him behind my back. You gave me a chance, but you still care about him." Soon, Kelechi started bringing other women into our home. At first, I stayed quiet, hoping it was just a phase. But as more women came, I couldn't stay silent anymore. One night, I found him with another woman in our room. My heart sank. I was pregnant, tired, and sad. But I couldn't let this continue. "She can't stay here," I said, my voice shaking but strong. "Not in our home, Kelechi. Not while I'm here." Kelechi's face changed, filled with anger. His words hurt, and I felt scared. "You don't tell me what to do in my house," he shouted. "You've been talking to Chinedu this whole time. Now it's my turn." I tried to explain, but Kelechi wasn't listening. His words hurt, and I felt hopeless. He stepped closer, and in his anger, I lost my balance and fell to the ground. I felt pain as I hit the floor, and my body felt weak. "Kelechi," I called softly, my voice barely a whisper. "Help me." But there was no answer. Kelechi didn't come. I lay there, trying to move, but my body felt heavy. I could hear him upstairs with the other woman. Barely awake, I crawled to the table in the living room where my phone was. With shaking hands, I reached for it and dialed Chinedu's number. The phone rang once before he picked up. "Hello?" Chinedu's voice sounded worried. "Are you okay?" I tried to speak, but my voice was weak. "Help," was all I could whisper before everything went dark. As I lay there, the phone slipped from my hand. Everything became quiet, and I just wanted to rest. I woke up to the sound of machines and the strong smell of antiseptic. My body felt heavy and broken. Slowly, I opened my eyes, seeing the bright white ceiling of a hospital room. My head hurt as memories of that night rushed back. Kelechi, the fall, the blood, the baby. Fear hit me like lightning. I quickly put my hand on my stomach, but something was wrong. It felt empty, hollow. Panic filled me and my chest tightened. "Chinedu?" I whispered, my voice weak and rough. Beside the bed, Chinedu moved. He had been sleeping in a chair, his face tired. When he heard my voice, his eyes opened, full of both relief and sadness. "You're awake," he said softly, but his voice sounded heavy with something terrible. I looked at him, and I knew. I didn't need to ask, but I had to hear it. "The baby?" Chinedu's face fell. His lips trembled as he shook his head. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice barely holding together. You lost the baby." Those words broke me. It felt like the air was sucked out of the room, leaving only emptiness. Tears filled my eyes, and everything around me blurred as the truth sank in. My baby was gone. The little life I held onto, the one thing that gave me hope, was gone. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The pain was too much. Chinedu held my hand gently, but there were no words that could take away the hurt. I can't believe this," I cried, my voice shaking. "It's all gone." Chinedu's eyes were red with unshed tears, and he squeezed my hand tighter. "You're still here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're alive, and I'm here with you." But his words didn't calm the storm inside me. The grief was too much. I had lost my child, and no matter what Chinedu said, nothing could fill that empty space. The door opened, and a doctor walked in, her face sad. She came to the bed slowly, as if she was afraid I might break. "Ms. Morgan," she said softly, "I'm so sorry for your loss. The fall caused serious damage, and we couldn't save the baby. But you're stable now, and we'll take good care of you." I nodded without saying anything, my mind struggling to understand her words. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't escape. I wanted to scream, to be angry at the world for taking my baby, but I had no strength left. All I could do was lie there, feeling broken and empty. After the doctor left, Chinedu stayed with me, holding my hand in silence. The weight of our loss hung between us, and I could feel his sadness too. But it wasn't just about the baby. It was about everything. Kelechi, the abuse, the lies. And now, the terrible price we had paid. Chinedu, I whispered, my voice weak. I can't go back. I can't face him again. You won't, Chinedu said firmly. I won't let him hurt you again. I'll make sure of that. Tears rolled down my face as I thought about all the things that could have been different. What if I had left Kelechi earlier? What if I had never gone back to him? What if I had protected my baby? But it was too late for regrets now. The damage was done, and I was left with nothing but the pieces of a life I had tried to save. The pain I will never forget is that I lost my child while trying to make her father take responsibility. What happened after I left the hospital? It had been a week since I left the hospital. I was sad every day, still feeling the pain of losing the baby. Every moment was hard, and I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. One morning, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Kelechi stood there looking very angry. His eyes were full of blame and hate. Chinedu, he growled, walking into the apartment without asking. Where is that coward? I know he's the reason you lost the baby. I stood still, shocked by his words. How did he know? Before I could answer, Kelechi went straight to the living room where Chinedu was sitting. Chinedu stood up, calm but ready, as Kelechi came closer, fists tight. How dare you take her to the hospital and kill my baby? Kelechi shouted, pointing at Chinedu. What? I shouted, shocked. How can you blame him? He saved my life while you were with another woman. Kelechi ignored me and kept looking at Chinedu with anger. Chinedu didn't move. Kelechi, you need to leave before I get angry, he said, staying calm. I don't want to deal with this. Leave? Kelechi laughed bitterly. You think you can take everything from me and walk away? I'll make sure you pay. I'll send you to jail for killing my baby. I stood between them, my heart racing. Kelechi, stop. It wasn't Chinedu's fault. You pushed me. You made me lose the baby. But Kelechi didn't care. He was too angry. You'll regret this, he said, backing toward the door. I'm taking this to court. Chinedu will go to jail. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I fell onto the couch, shaking. Chinedu sat beside me. He's going to try to ruin you, I whispered, feeling scared. Chinedu put his arm around me and said calmly, let him try. The truth will come out. Just as he said, Kelechi quickly filed a lawsuit against Chinedu. He lied, saying that Chinedu made me go to the hospital and caused me to lose the baby. It was all lies, but the thought of going to court again scared me. Still, we had to fight. Chinedu didn't do anything wrong, and I couldn't let him suffer for something that wasn't his fault. My lawyer and I worked hard to prepare for the trial. We collected all the evidence, like hospital records and witness statements, to prove that Chinedu only helped me, and that Kelechi's actions caused the loss of... The day of the trial came. The courtroom was full, and everyone felt nervous. Kelechi walked in with his lawyer, looking sure of himself and smirking. He seemed confident that his lies would work, but I knew we had the truth on our side. Chinedu sat next to me, calm and strong, which made me feel better. During the trial, Kelechi's lawyer tried to make Chinedu look like the bad guy. They said he got involved in our relationship and made me lose the baby. They tried to make Kelechi look like a father who was hurt. But we were ready. My lawyer quickly destroyed their lies. She showed the hospital records that proved I was admitted after falling down the stairs, not for an abortion. The doctor said that it was Chinedu who rushed me to the hospital after I was hurt, not Kelechi. They confirmed that the baby was lost because of the fall, not an abortion. The most important moment came when a nurse gave her testimony. She remembered how I told the staff, through tears, that Kelechi had pushed me during an argument. The courtroom went silent as the truth came out. and Kelechi's confidence began to disappear. When it was Chinedu's turn to speak, he calmly explained how he found me after the fall and took me to the hospital, trying to save both me and the baby. His words were clear and honest, showing what really happened. Finally, Kelechi took the stand. He tried to twist the story, saying I had cheated on him and that Chinedu had been involved for months. But his lies didn't work, and with all the evidence against him, even his lawyer seemed to lose hope. The judge listened carefully to everything. Then he turned to Chinedu and me. Based on the evidence, the judge began, it is clear that Mr. Chinedu was acting as a concerned friend, helping Ms. Morgan after her fall. There is no proof that Mr. Chinedu caused the pregnancy to end. The medical records and witness testimonies show that the pregnancy was lost because Mr. Kelechi pushed Ms. Morgan down the stairs. The judge's voice became firm. Mr. Kelechi, I find you guilty of abuse, assault, and causing harm that led to the loss of your unborn child. You are sentenced to 6 years in prison. Also, you are ordered to stay away from Ms. Morgan and Mr. Chinedu. The gavel hit, and the tension in the room broke. Kelechi was taken away in handcuffs, his face full of anger. But it didn't matter anymore. The truth had come out, and justice was done. Outside the courthouse, Chinedu was smiling. Why are you smiling? I asked. You were amazing in there, he said softly. You stood up for the truth, and we won. We won, I smiled back. Kelechi could have walked away quietly, but he chose to fight. Maybe he was upset about losing you, Chinedu said thoughtfully, but it's too late for him now. Maybe, I agreed. People only realize what they have after it's gone. Chinedu's face softened, and he gently held my hand. Just like me, he said. I'm the reason you went through all this pain, and I'm truly sorry. If you give me another chance, I promise I won't mess it up. I looked into his eyes, seeing how honest he was. He was right. I had been running from the truth for too long, and the truth was, I loved Chinedu. I had always loved him. He just needed to prove he could be the man I deserved. He pulled me close, and we kissed, just like we did the first time many years ago. Months had passed since the trial, and my life had finally become calm. Kelechi was in prison, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. The weight of the past was gone, and I could finally think about the future, our future. Chinedu and I grew closer during those months. Every day he showed me how much he loved me and was committed to making things right. I could see how much he had changed. He was patient, kind, and always there when I needed him. The guilt he carried for so long was fading, replaced with a strong desire to build a new life together. One evening, as the sun was setting and casting a warm glow over the city, Chinedu took me to our favorite spot by the lake. It was the same place where we had shared many memories, some happy, some sad. Now it felt like the perfect place to start a new chapter in our story. As we sat on the hill, watching the water move gently, Chinedu turned to me with a soft smile. I've been thinking a lot about us, he said, his voice steady. Everything we've been through, everything we've survived, it made me realize how much I need you in my life. I don't want to wait anymore. My heart started racing as I understood what was about to happen. Chinedu reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught as he opened it, showing a simple, beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the light. Chinedu, I whispered, tears filling my eyes. He took a deep breath, looking into my eyes. I've loved you for as long as I can remember, and I don't want to lose you again. Will you marry me, Morgan? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making things right? For a moment, everything seemed to stop. All the pain, all the sadness, it disappeared. I saw only the man I loved, the one who had stayed by my side through it all. And I knew, deep inside, that this was where I belonged. Yes, I whispered, my voice shaking with emotion. Yes, Chinedu, I'll marry you. Chinedu smiled brightly as he slipped the ring onto my finger, sealing our promise to each other. He pulled me into his arms, and we kissed, the world around us fading away as we held each other close. The months leading up to the wedding were filled with joy and excitement. We wanted a simple wedding, one that showed our love and our journey. Family and friends came together to celebrate with us, and there was so much laughter and happiness as we prepared to say our vows. On the day of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in a beautiful white dress, my heart beating fast with excitement. The past felt far away now, and all I could think about was the future I was about to share with Chinedu. As I walked down the aisle and saw Chinedu waiting for me at the altar, my heart filled with peace. He looked at me with so much love and care, the same love that had helped us through the hardest times. In that moment, I knew we were ready for this next step. The ceremony was simple and beautiful. We exchanged vows, promising to love, care for, and support each other through all the good and bad times. When the officiant finally said we were husband and wife, the happiness on Chinedu's face matched my own. As we kissed, the cheers and claps of our loved ones surrounded us. Later that night, as we danced under the stars at the reception, I couldn't help but think about how far we had come. The pain, the loss, the heartache. It had all brought us to this moment of pure happiness, and I knew this was just the start of our new life together. Chinedu pulled me close, his hand resting gently on my waist. "I told you we'd get through this," he whispered warmly in my ear. I smiled up at him, my heart full of love. "You were right," I said softly, "and I wouldn't change a thing." As the music played, we swayed together, lost in our love, ready to face whatever the future held, together. The story teaches that trust and honesty are very important in relationships. When people lie or hide their true feelings, it can cause pain and confusion. It's important to be careful when choosing who to trust, and sometimes, it's better to take time to think about what is best for yourself before making big decisions. Real love is built on truth and respect,